Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to a run through of my Bon Jovi CD collection. The band formed back in 1983 around frontman Jon Bon Jovi, having gotten a record deal based on the song Runaway that was a takeoff hit or whatever you want to call it from a radio compilation album. And so he forms the band around that, and the rest, as they say, is history. The band has released a total of 16 studio albums, but I myself have 32 CDs in my collection. So we're going to run through all of that. I've got various different things in here. Maybe there'll be something in it that you won't know about and want to track down. Who knows? But all in all, it should be a fun run through of the whole catalog of Bon Jovi. So we're going to get into it here in just a bit. But before we do, if you're new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like. All those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things like this with a run through of my Bon Jovi CD collection. So we're going to jump all the way back to the time where young Jon Bon Jovi was just a gopher, a hired hand, so to speak, at his cousin Tony Bon Jovi's recording studio, the Power Station, and he was allowed to record in the evenings, and these would be the recordings that would ultimately get him that recording contract later on. But I've got the Power Station years, and look at how they spell Bon Jovi, or I don't know if I'm even saying that one right, but it's obviously a little bit different there. That is the original spelling of his name and how they got this out. But this is not really an official release because it's not at Mercury Records and he didn't choose to put it out. But we've got 14 songs on here that never make it to a Bon Jovi album. The song Runaway obviously would. That is not on there. So there's other various compilations. Some of them have those on it. This, to me, is the best and most complete. If you want to know what he sounded like before the band, the stuff that he was demoing when he was trying to get a record deal, this is it. All right, but of course, he does get that elusive record deal, and they release the debut album in 1984. This just recently celebrated its 40th anniversary. I did not pick up the deluxe edition, 2 CD edition of it. The bonus content on there really didn't wow me in any way, shape, or form, and it had multiple versions. I think 4 versions of Runaway in a row on it. I just don't care for that. I want some other unreleased content or demos or stuff. Demos of the whole album. I don't know. But this is a good album. I don't really feel like this is the Bon Jovi that we ultimately know, began to know later on. So I never really rank it very high, but I know a lot of you out there love that album. All right, their second studio album from 1985, 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit. That temperature is the temperature at which rock will melt. There is a real temperature that rock will turn into liquid, like magma from a volcano, right? So 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit is it. That is the title. No real big standout songs on this, but this is a good hard rockin' album, a great second album. But again, the band really still finding their footing on it. I don't think that we really got the Bon Jovi that would become the signature sound of Bon Jovi until their third album, Slippery When Wet. This is 1986. It's the famed cover, but obviously there is the more famous one with the girls washing the car and the skimpy shirt. But that one wasn't going to be available. Retailers weren't going to carry that unless it was censored, I guess. So they ultimately did this, which is just a black trash bag with the name written in it. It looks like it's kind of cool, like it's a windshield or something, but it's not, just a black trash bag. So fantastic, third studio album. This thing has sold 15 million copies just in the US alone, and it kicked off Bon Jovi's career to no end. We then get the follow-up, fourth studio album, New Jersey. This was a much more grown-up affair. We get much more serious lyrical content and stuff on this one here. And again, this is just showing the growth of Bon Jovi. So this album here was actually originally going to be a double album with the second disc in it. And they were thinking of calling it Son of Beaches. I guess they were hanging out on the beaches a lot at that time. But we would later get this 3-disc box set version of it where you get disc 1 and disc 2. So you get that second disc of what would have been the second part of New Jersey had it been a double album. And had that happened, I think we'd be talking about Bon Jovi in a little bit different light, because this album was enormous for what it was, but had it been a double album, we could be speaking about it like The Wall or something. You never really know. There were 13 additional songs. Some of these, including the song Diamond Ring, would later turn up on These Days. So cool hearing some of those early versions. There's also the DVD that's in here, simply titled New Jersey, Access All Areas. So very, very cool compilation of material that fleshes out that whole of the New Jersey era. This coming out years later, of course. But, you know, one of their box sets. All right, because essentially Jon Bon Jovi is Bon Jovi, he predominantly writes everything for the band. Sometimes he gets an assist. But I went ahead and put in what was his official first solo album, Blaze of Glory, music inspired by Young Guns 2. And this one here having, of course, the song Blaze of Glory, which has gone on to be on their greatest hits albums, get played live. It's probably as big of a Bon Jovi song as all the other Bon Jovi songs, even though it's Jon Bon Jovi solo. But Blaze of Glory, you hear that all the time, and it comes from this. So I've chosen to go ahead and include these, even though technically they're solo albums. But really, what is Bon Jovi other than Jon Bon Jovi backed up? It's sort of like Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. That's the way I see the band Bon Jovi. All right, so, you know, Jon Bon Jovi takes a break there with that album, and they return in 1992 with Keep the Faith. This one here, a much more, you know, adult affair, so to speak, much more serious, much more grounded than their other albums. A very good album for what it is. In 1992, didn't quite sell the same as the previous ones, like New Jersey did 7 million in the US. This did 2 million, but in 1992, that was still big business based on the current market of everything with grunge and the fall of glam metal. And I do consider Bon Jovi one of the biggest glam metal bands of all time, but a great album at that. They released a compilation, Crossroads, not titled as a greatest hits, but did very well for them. Kind of interestingly laid out, because it opens with Living on a Prayer, an original version, but there is track number 10, Prayer 94, a slowed down edition, which is very good. But why is it track 10? I always dislike that. If they had put it at track number 14, the last track, could have gotten behind it maybe. Here we have Blaze of Glory on this. We do get a couple new songs. We get Someday I'll Be Saturday Night, which is basically a lot like I'll Sleep When I'm Dead off of this. So that was an interesting thing to hear them, in my opinion, for first time repeating a particular sound. And then we have Always, which went on to be a huge ballad for the group, but that coming from that collection. And then the band returns with These Days in 1995. So this one here, the band put out, I think they were import only, but this is a 2 CD edition. I didn't buy all of them that way, but the 2 CD edition of it, and I think I'm going to pull this out, we'll just see. Yeah, this is a Japanese release, and so this has a bonus disc in it of nine more songs included, B-sides and probably some live and alternate takes and stuff like that. But kind of wish I'd bought all of them at this point. This was just one of my absolute favorite albums that they've ever done, and so I wanted those extra songs. Plus, you get the 2 bonus tracks that made the Japanese edition on here. So those, and as I said, this had Diamond Ring on it. So cool to get that. There are some other ones. I believe up through this album at the time had been reissued as 2 CD editions in Japan. Like I said, I just picked up that one. So Jon Bon Jovi decides to branch out again and make a solo album in between these days and next album, Crush. It was a 5-year break in there. And this is basically what the band Bon Jovi could have sounded like. Destination Anywhere. And he was trying to be an actor at the time and starred in some movies and had varying degrees of success with it. And this one here, he shot an entire movie, and this was the soundtrack to it. It was his own movie. I don't remember how much he wrote of it or didn't write, but he fully stars in it, all the music. It's got Annabelle Sciorra in it, some well-known actors in this movie. But this one here, definite of the 90s with the drum loops and backbeats and stuff like that. Good material, but in my opinion, doesn't really hold up very well. It's very much of the time. It's like the 80s have a signature sound, and sometimes you could be too 80s. Well, the 90s the same way, and this is, in my opinion, too 90s. So anyway, that was the last of his solo albums, so we are going to be writing out the rest of this on Bon Jovi album proper. Now, as I mentioned, they make a huge return in 2000 with Crush. And this one here having the song It's My Life, which was the continuation of the story of Johnny and Gina. I don't remember if I got those names right, but it just clicked. It was great. The fans wanted to hear something like that. It was a little modernized sound so the younger kids could get into it. But suddenly, Bon Jovi was huge again. This being a Japanese edition that came with 2 bonus tracks. At this time, Japan was releasing things a couple months early before the US market and other territories. So I was importing, especially my Bon Jovi albums, because they were coming usually with 2 additional studio songs. And I always wanted that. I was buying the CD singles at the time to get those bonus tracks, studio material. Bon Jovi has always recorded way more material than what it is that they would actually release at the time. Case in point, we'll have a box set about that in a little bit. Another Japanese only release is this one, Tokyo Road, meant to be a tie-in to Crossroads. And so this one here being focusing on all the hard rock stuff and having the song One Wild Night, a new 2001 version, which I think sounds a lot better than what was on the album. And it would later turn up on the album One Wild Night. You'd get that studio rendition of it on here. But this was cool because not only did it have that, but it also came with a little 3-inch CD single. If you've never seen one of those will play on most CD players. That's why there is the smaller indentation and then the 5-inch indentation. And so this is Bon Jovi Road live. We get Tokyo Road live, Not Fade Away live from Jon Bon Jovi's solo tour, Next 100 Years live, and Father Time, which is a Richie Sambora solo tour live song. And I thought it was cool that he was shining a light for both the Bon Jovi material, his solo material, but also Richie Sambora solo as well. I do have the Richie Sambora solo albums. I just decided not to show them as part of this because really Bon Jovi being the 5 guys and eventually the 4 guys after Alec John Such left. And as I showed you, the one and only official live album from the band, One Wild Night, recorded through multiple different shows. It's a great live album. They've done multiple live DVDs, and I take that back. That is not the one and only, but domestic, worldwide version. I'm going to show you one that was an import later on. They then try to modernize even more and go with Bounce, which came out in 2002. Again, a Japanese edition with 2 bonus tracks on it. We get Open All Night. Maybe there's only 1 bonus track. The last song on here, 11, Bounce. It's always a little hard to tell sometimes which is which, or maybe even if Open All Night is on the album, then there's 2 more that's not called out, but that happens sometimes as part of these things. Either way, yeah, I liked picking up the Japanese editions of these to get it, but they had even more of the drum loops and samples and things. Essentially, this is more akin to the Jon Bon Jovi solo album Destination Anywhere, which I don't think aged very well, and I don't think this album has either. Some of it's good. The song Undivided is really good. Every Day is good. The Distance. And for me, the album pretty well falls off after that point. But those first three songs I do like. We then got this Target, the store, Target, exclusive. And so this has 7 tracks on it. And it's got Breathe, Lucky, No Regrets, and Standing. 4 studio B-sides on here. Oh, actually 5. We Can Dance. 5 studios. So it's actually 8 tracks on here. And then Misunderstood Live, Everyday an acoustic version, and just older live. So 8 songs, a self-titled EP. There's the Target logo on here. But I love it. You could only get it through them, and now out of print, but having those extra B-sides, collecting together the stuff that I had already gotten on my CD singles, but now having it on a full length, so to speak, Bon Jovi collection, I really dug. And then they did this. This Lift Feels Right. And it was reworkings of their hits in an acoustic retelling, a reimagining. It was one of the first artists to do that. We now get a lot of bands doing reimaginings of their material, but Bon Jovi was one of the first to do it, and unfortunately, it didn't really hit. It didn't really take off. You would have thought that new versions of those would have been, I thought this album was going to be huge for them, but it didn't. There were 2 new songs that were recorded as part of this, Thief of Hearts and Last Man Standing, which would later turn up on Have a Nice Day. They're part of the live DVD version, but not on the album. And I think had they been on here, had they released both of those as singles, this album would have sold really well. They chose not to. They decided to hold back the song Last Man Standing for their album. And I don't know why they just didn't choose to even put Thief of Hearts on there, because Thief of Hearts would later turn up on this box set. Now, maybe that was the selling point to this. I don't really know. But this being a 5-disc box set, 100 million Bon Jovi fans can't be wrong. The band having sold around or at 100 million albums worldwide by this point, puts this out, and this is all unreleased songs in the sense of not appearing on a Bon Jovi album. So B-sides, outtakes, other studio versions of songs, and everyone in here gets a solo track. So Tico Torres has a solo recording in here. David Bryan has one, the keyboard player. I only think Alec John Such does not, but he wasn't part of the band at this point. We get a Richie Sambora sung song. We get, of course, Jon Bon Jovi solo material. But all in all, it's predominantly all Bon Jovi, just those few, I think like 4 solo tracks at that point. All in all, really good, and that song, Thief of Hearts, does appear on here, and I believe it's an electric version of it, not the one that was from the sort of reimagined version. But this is a very cool box set. For me, loving to get all that unreleased Bon Jovi material, this was an absolute dream when it got released. And then I tracked down a selections of, this is a promo single disc edition of it given out to radio stations and people who would be reviewing the box set. But I tracked down a version of it, and it's got 10 tracks. So a selection of, there's 4 CDs, 1 Blu-ray, is it Blu-ray or DVD? DVD that's in here. So 4 CDs and 1 DVD. And so of those 4 CDs, they select out 10 of the songs. So this is like a greatest hits of unreleased material. And on here is the song Thief of Hearts, which is cool. All right, so the band is finally back. They're ready to rock. They've dropped all of that backbeat, drum loop, whatever it is that they were doing from the album Bounce. And they come back with the hard rockin' album, Have a Nice Day. And so this one, having Last Man Standing, if you've never checked that out, it is a phenomenal song. It's written about Bob Dylan, but it is a rockin' tune. And this album is the real kind of last hard rock album from the band. They come back and they do The Circle, and they do This House Is Not For Sale. Those are both really good rock albums. But this one here was a really rockin' album all the way through. Great album. So this one here is... I don't know if this is a Japanese one, but another import with 2 unreleased tracks on it. Dirty Little Secret and Unbreakable is on there. Whenever I had an opportunity to get bonus Bon Jovi material, I'd like to get it. And then I think this one was a Walmart exclusive. I don't think it's a Target, but it's the live from the Have a Nice Day tour. 6 live recordings as an EP, released exclusive to, like I said, I think it's Walmart. Promoting the tour and everything, and it was the only place you can get it. Now it's out of print, so glad to have that in my collection. And from the Have a Nice Day, they released that song, Who Says You Can't Go Home, and they did a re-recorded version with duetting Jennifer Nettles on it, the country singer, and they had an even bigger hit with that. So the band decides to go make their version of a country album, calling it Lost Highway, which is really good. They have a lot of country guests on here, and it meanders into that territory, but it's more folksy, and it still has the Bon Jovi pop and rock flavors to it. But it wasn't a full-on rock album like the last one. Still, it did well. This one did 1 million copies, just like Have a Nice Day did. So this comes out, and that's just a standard one. Didn't get a Japanese. I think by the point of this, the releases are coming out the same day in all the countries. I think they might have switched to Friday releases by this point, and that's why. Now, I found this years later, and I don't really know what territory or where this comes out from, but as far as I know, this was not a regular domestic release. I would have bought it. Bon Jovi, Lost Highway, the concert. And I had the DVD of this and enjoyed it all the time. And they're doing, you know, the Bon Jovi Lost Highway album in its entirety here. And they do the song, they do a couple additional things on here, like It's My Life and Who Says You Can't Go Home on here as well at the end. But it's just a fantastic live concert that I was totally shocked to find out about. And so I picked this up. I actually only picked this up maybe a couple of years ago when I found out. Anytime I find out there's something I don't have, and you never know. There's always stuff floating under the radar. I think I have everything, and then I'm searching, and all of a sudden, boom, I don't have something. All right, so I picked up next The Circle from 2009. Great live album. This one is one that came with the documentary When We Were Young, and a fantastic documentary. If you like the one that you recently saw, Thank You, Good Night, which was all about Jon Bon Jovi and his vocal issues and the struggles around all of that. This one here was just about the history of the band and everything. And it came with this, and it's a great one. I'm sure it's out there digitally these days, called When We Were Young. Check it out. But that was one of the bonuses that came with this at the time. Bon Jovi always doing things like that, adding some bonus material. You could get deluxe editions and things of that nature. The band then does an official greatest hits. It is a 2 CD edition where they add 2 new tracks to the first disc and 2 new tracks to the second disc, so 4 new songs in all as part of it. It's why I have the 2 CD edition and not the single, because I wanted those extra 2 tracks. But you could buy a single disc edition, which had just 2 of the new songs, so could not have all the Bon Jovi that I could get. But unfortunately, the compilation is really very close to Crossroads. It only adds in a couple different ones. They don't vary too much with their set list or greatest hits compilations when it comes to releasing these things. Next up was What About Now? And I do have the first edition of this, which was a deluxe edition with a couple extra bonus tracks, including, I think, a Jon Bon Jovi solo song or 2 from a movie that he did. But I later picked up a jewel case edition, and that's the one that I'm showing you here. I still have the other one. It's floating around somewhere. This album here, What About Now, is much more of a pop flavor, one of the most pop sounding albums that the band ever did. And then the band has a falling out with their record label. The record label wants to drop them, and the band is like, what the hell? Jon Bon Jovi's saying, I've been on the label my entire career, and now you're going to drop me? kind of ridiculous. So what did he do? He owed them one more album, and he basically went into the archives and finished off a bunch of songs, called it Burning Bridges. And the last song on here, which is called Burning Bridges, is a big F you to the record label. Like, here you go, one last album, go do what you want with it. I'm not going to promote it. I'm not releasing any videos or singles, nothing. And when he released it, it came in a cardboard sleeve, no lyrics, no notes, no booklet, no nothing. That was all it was, and that's all that he would do with it. I later found this one, a jewel case edition that has one bonus track on it, Take Back the Night. It would have been nice if they had moved that into the regular album sequence, because the song Burning Bridges is such not a standard Bon Jovi song, and it really hits harder being the last track on the album, because it even sings, "This is the last track you'll ever get to sell from me." Well, they listened to him, and they went ahead and re-signed Jon Bon Jovi, the band Bon Jovi, to the label, and he's still on Mercury Records, Island Records, to this day, thank goodness. And he returns. So this was archival stuff. We still had some Richie Sambora stuff on here, but he had already left by this point. Not really a brand new album, although all new tracks. The first new album without Richie Sambora is This House Is Not For Sale. One of their greatest albums, in my opinion, and the last full-on rock album that they would do. They made a video for every single song, and there's several different versions of this out there, where there was one with 5 extra tracks, 6 extra tracks. This one has 8, I think, 7 or 8 additional studio recordings of new songs. So a total of 18 songs on this one here. I think in all I bought 3 versions of this at the time until I finally found this one. And I was like, okay, now I've got all the tracks that they released. They would later, I think, re-release this, if I'm not mistaken, and add 2 more songs to the beginning of it. But only digitally. Couldn't buy a physical copy of it, so I don't have that. I'm waiting for the next box set that'll collect up a bunch of those kind of things. As part of the promotion for that, he did a live playing of the album in its entirety, This House Is Not For Sale live, and broadcasted, I think, on the day of release of the album. And then a short time later, this was like a Target exclusive, or maybe Walmart, or I don't know which one, but somebody sold this exclusively, and it's the entire album done live. Nothing overly fantastic, but just another unique release that's not readily available every other which way. And then we have the album 2020, and it's divided a lot of fans. It's a very political album. It was very much a moment in time. He does the whole John F. Kennedy pose, like the portrait in the White House. And this was an interesting album because it came out during the pandemic. He postpones it during it because of what's going on with the pandemic. And he ends up dropping 2 songs and recording 2 new ones. Do What You Can, which was about the pandemic, and American Reckoning, which was about the death of George Floyd, and put them in here and change the whole flow of the album and everything. I would later buy the Japanese edition and get those 2 missing songs that were bumped. But at the time when he first released the first single, Limitless, we knew what the album was. Then he pulled it from release, added 2 new songs, dropped 2 songs, resequenced the album, and you got what you got. But this one here, the Japanese edition, restores that, keeping those newer songs on there as well. And we lead into the most current album that they have, which is the one Forever. This one here is only a year old at this point, 2024, but he just announced the Legendary Edition, where all of the songs have been added to it, duet versions of the tracks with Jon singing. And some of the songs, like the last one, Hollow Man, which has Bruce Springsteen, has added harmonica to it, I assume by Bruce Springsteen. So some of the sounds have changed, and then they add one brand new song to the beginning of it, Red, White, and Jersey. There's a video out for that now, but a new sort of rendition of this album called Forever Legendary Edition. So we're looking forward to that. I think it's like September 26th, I can't remember, but this album is actually a really good album. He sings in a lower register as he's healing his voice, but it still sounds like Bon Jovi. If you like Bon Jovi from the last 25 years, you're gonna like that album. I still think it's really good. And now actually the latest thing that they have put out, All the Best 1984 to 2024, a single disc compilation. There's a 3 CD version of this. This is Japanese, and it spans from 84 to 2024. But they actually leave out all kinds of stuff in between. We get up to Have a Nice Day. That is the 2005. And then they skip essentially 19 years and drop Legendary on here, but they don't put anything else, and that kind of bums me out. Now, the 3 CD edition does have stuff all the way through from every album, but I like single disc compilations, and I bought it just because it's a release from Bon Jovi, and it's got a good sequence. It's not chronological, and I like compilations that are not chronological, but got a good deal on it from my friend Anthony Coviello at Sound Exchange, importing it for me. So there you go. That is my Bon Jovi CD collection. I hope you guys enjoyed it. 32 things that I showed you here. And as I mentioned, as I was talking to you, I realized I had other versions of some of these albums. So I really actually have more, but sometimes these things are put away in boxes and I don't remember it until I'm actually running through it with you guys now. But this is the bulk of it. So maybe you saw something in there new, one of those Target exclusive, Walmart exclusives, Japanese edition. Who knows? That compilation called Tokyo Road is amazing. I still pull that out all the time because it just rocks thoroughly. It's one of my favorite things in the collection. All right, everyone, take care. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.